Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for speaking with Arabiya.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, you said that bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear weapons was a good decision for America, and you said that Israel should do the same.
I did not.
What exactly you meant by this statement? Can you explain it to us,
I didn't
please?
say that. I never said that Israel should drop an atomic bomb or a nuclear bomb on Gaza. I never said that. I said our country did. My dad was in New Guinea in the Army Air Force in World War II. The Japanese was a fanatical regime. We lost thousands of people in Okinawa and Iwo Jima. The decision was made once nuclear weapons were acquired to try to end the war. They anticipated 1 million American casualties if we had to invade mainland Japan. My dad was in New Guinea. He could have been one of those. So we were attacked by the Japanese. They're a fanatical regime. The Germans were religious, they were Nazis. And we brought that war to a close. I think we saved not only 1 million American lives, probably Japanese lives. Israel. Israel was attacked viciously on October the 7th by Hamas, who doesn't care much about the Palestinian people. They want to kill all the Jews. Here's what I said. Give them the ability to destroy Hamas as quickly as possible, and let's move to peace. I've been to Saudi Arabia and Israel 4 times since October the 7th, trying to find a way not only to end the war, but create peace. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is the first guy I've met that has a vision that I think can change the face of the Mideast. Hamas has to be destroyed. They have tunnels under cities and all over the place. Give Israel the weapons they need to break the back of Hamas. Try to lessen civilian casualties the best you can, knowing Hamas uses their own people as human shields. I'm worried about the day after. And here's what Crown Prince has said. The Arab world, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others need to come into Gaza and the West Bank. The Palestinian people have been long suffering. Their leaders are corrupt. They're old and corrupt in the West Bank, and Hamas is fanatical. The Palestinians deserve better, and how do you give them better? Security for Israel, a better life for the Palestinians. So once Hamas is destroyed, and they have to be, because they're not going to stop unless somebody makes them stop. What I would like to see is Saudi Arabia and Israel build on the Abraham Accords and negotiate with the Palestinian people sovereignty for the Palestinians, dignity for the Palestinians, security for the Israelis. That can only happen once Hamas has been destroyed. Iran is the great bad guy here. I had been working with the Crown Prince and President Biden and the Israeli government to build on the Abraham Accords. Along comes October the 7th. I think this attack of October 7th was designed in part to make sure that Saudi Arabia and Israel do not come together and form a new future for the Mideast, because that's a nightmare for Iran. So when I see what happens in Gaza, who could not be moved? I don't want any child to die on either side. But the goal is not just to destroy Hamas, but to build a better future so this doesn't happen again. Hamas will not come back if the Palestinian people have choices.
Well, you said so many things here, but let me just follow up with a few points. Number one, the Saudis and the Crown Prince has been very clear that they need to see a two-state solution.
Yes.
Mr. Netanyahu said no to two-state solution. He's on the record saying that. The US has vetoed any chance of Palestine joining the Security Council. So how can you go forward? What message do you give to the moderate to alienate the extremists?
Well, it's more sophisticated than that. The Crown Prince wants more than a two-state solution. He wants a defense agreement with the United States. I am willing to vote for a defense agreement between the United States and Saudi Arabia, where we would go to war for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Because I see in the Crown Prince a vision for the region, economic stability, that will lead to to a Mideast I could not have dreamed of 3 years ago. So he wants a defense agreement. Saudi Arabia has 7% of the world's uranium supply. He wants to commercialize that and make money off of it. And I'm okay with that, as long as we control the enrichment process. He wants economic agreements with the United States so we have access to our markets. So if he says no to China, he'll get a good deal with the United States. That all makes sense to me. If he gets those three things, then he will talk with the Israelis. And the Israelis, the discussion will be, what do we do with the Palestinians? The Knesset voted 99-9 to reject the unilateral creation of a Palestinian state, but they did say in the resolution a Palestinian state could come about only through direct negotiations without conditions. Here's what I think after having visited the region a lot, that there will be serious discussions about a way forward for the Palestinians, direct negotiations that could lead to a Palestinian, whatever you want to call it, state, independent, sovereign place, if Israel has the security. I don't want to speak for Israel, but I do know this. They're ready to sit down and talk about the future of the Palestinian people if they had a reliable partner. They don't see the PA as reliable. They certainly don't see Hamas as reliable. I think the Crown Prince and UAE could create a dynamic on the ground in Gaza and the West Bank that would lead to real discussions. And if Israel says no, then they say no. But here's what I believe. If you give the Crown Prince the three things he wants from the United States and they start discussions with Israel, I am hopeful we can get there.
Great. So let me put this again clearly as I can. So basically you're willing to give what the Saudis want in terms of the defense agreement, in terms of all the package that you said, before normalization, that will be the first step?
Yes. And see, the Crown Prince is a very smart guy. And I told him, now we're on TV, I guess everybody will hear what I told him. I said, get what you want from the United States. Because what is he doing? He's going to take on the entire Arab world. He's going to ask for the biggest change in my lifetime in the Mideast, to sit down with the Israelis and talk about recognizing the Jewish state. That's no small thing. For that, he has to have security and economic opportunity he doesn't have today. If he had a defense agreement with the United States, where we would go to war for the kingdom, and Iran attacks Saudi Arabia, they're attacking us. So I think it's a very smart move for him to align himself with the United States like Japan and Australia.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is heading to Riyadh, as you know. Secretary Blinken was there. You've been there many times. What's the time frame for that? Do you think, what's the feasibility of having this agreement?
Sooner rather than later. The Crown Prince cannot do this with full-scale military operations. He's going to insist on some level of a ceasefire. Israel is right to demand their hostages back. But I'm afraid you don't want to give Iran a veto over this deal. If the Iranians believe a ceasefire where you trade hostages for a ceasefire would result in Saudi Arabia and Israel forming an alliance, they'll be reluctant to do it. This is very hard for the folks, for the people of Israel. They want their people back. But here's the big prize. If we could end the Arab-Israeli conflict by having an agreement between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel that would create regional security we've never had, economic prosperity that couldn't even been imagined 3 years ago, it would be worth taking some risk. And here's what I told the Crown Prince. If you get a defense agreement with the United States, that is the best seal of approval in the world. There are only a handful of countries we will go to war for. Japan, Australia, we have an agreement with NATO. So if you're in a business and you're looking to a country to do business with, Saudi Arabia all of a sudden becomes very attractive because you have the American people and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia working together to defend the territory. It becomes a very secure place. So And that tells Iran, if you fight Saudi Arabia, you're fighting America, which I think will make put Iran in a box. Israel. Israel's going to have to figure out what happens the day after. Let's say those 4 battalions are destroyed tomorrow. We don't need a nuclear weapon, but we do need to destroy these battalions. What's next? If you don't have a vision like the Crown Prince does, where the Arab world will come in and replace the corrupt with less corrupt and invest and change the school system like he's done in Saudi Arabia, we'll go nowhere. So I think it's in everyone's interest to think about the day after Hamas is destroyed. And I've spent an enormous amount of time, and the best idea I've heard from anybody is from the Crown Prince.
Netanyahu is playing for a domestic audience. You know that. He has extremists in his government who opposes a two-state solution. Even they don't have many people believe they don't have an exit strategy. So how can you get the Israelis?
You're just going to have to, you won't, this is a good question. 80% of the Israeli people want Hamas destroyed. They don't want to ever have another October 7th, and Hamas says they'll do it again and again. The Israeli people are very cautious of rewarding a terrorist act with a Palestinian state. The terrorist attack, all of a sudden you get a state, you're rewarding terrorism. Here's what I tell the Israelis, no. You want a plan for the Palestinian people where Hamas can never come back. And what is that plan? That's a better future. Hamas will come back in different forms if Israel has to stay there. I think the Palestinian people, if they had a better option, they would take it. So the goal to keep Hamas destroyed, in my view, is to have a new plan for the Palestinians, a West Bank governing model that's less corrupt, new people with a new vision.
Reformed, like the administration asked, or different?
I just trust the Crown Prince to understand a better life, to help the Palestinians with a better life. Gaza has to be rebuilt. The American taxpayer is not going to rebuild it, but I tell you what, the Crown Prince and the UAE, they can rebuild Gaza. And the goal is not just to rebuild Gaza, but to replace depression with hope, to build new buildings, but also have a new attitude. And I have been there. I have tried everything I can to make this happen, and there's no way forward for the Israelis unless you have a day after plan where Hamas can't come back. For Saudi, you're going to spend $1 trillion modernizing your economy. You're going to be the AI center of the Mideast. You're going to be Dubai on steroids. Count me in, the Nome, the Line. None of that works if the region's on fire. So Saudi Arabia needs a brand change. Recognizing Israel will be seen as a major change here in America, will be very positively received. Having a defense agreement with the United States will tell every business in the world Saudi Arabia is a safe place to do business. His vision depends on a Mideast not on fire. Israel's security depends on the Palestinians having hope. And here we are. We're trying to destroy these battalions. My main goal is not just to destroy the battalions in Rafah, is to rebuild the Palestinian economy and rebuild the Palestinian governance so you will never have another October 7th. Here's what I believe. If the Palestinian people had a hopeful life, everything would change. That's my bet.
You talked about hope, but the casualties in Gaza is staggering. We're talking about thousands and thousands of civilians. 70% are women and children.
Yes.
People have no place to go. There is no safe place in Gaza. So how do you go from there when
That's a good question.
Netanyahu is determined?
Just end the war as quick as you can.
But how? How, Senator?
Here's what I would say. That I believe if Hamas was destroyed tomorrow or surrendered, Israel would stop. I don't believe Hamas would. If Israel withdrew, Hamas would come back. Here's your problem. If Israel left Gaza, withdrew all their forces, Hamas would come back and attack them again. If you could destroy Hamas, I think Israel would stop. The problem with trying to destroy the military wing of Hamas is they're integrated among the civilian population. The point is, let's do Rafah in a way to destroy the battalions, but not unnecessarily kill innocent civilians. That's what the administration's talking about. I have told the Israelis, I want you to have the weapons to end this war as quick as possible, but I am hopeful there's going to be a meeting of the minds here. It doesn't help Israel to kill people that you don't need to kill. It certainly doesn't help the region for this war to keep going on and on and on. So the battalions are going nowhere. They're surrounded. So what I would like to see is a way to focus on them and do this deal at the same time. And I can envision the following. Have a ceasefire, get people out of harm's way, help in the north, open up more crossings with Egypt, do this agreement outlining a better future for the Palestinians, and allow Israel to finish off the battalions. I could see those two things going on at the same time. I'm going to go back one more time, and I'm going to do my best to tell the Crown Prince and Bibi, I'm a Republican. Now, what makes this unusual? I am willing to help a Democratic president. This would be a very big deal for President Biden to end the Arab-Israeli conflict. To normalize between Saudi Arabia and Israel on his watch would be a political benefit to him. I think President Trump, who I like a lot, would get his fair share of credit because of the Abraham Accords. But I've told the Crown Prince and the Israelis, I think the best time to do this deal is on a Democrat's watch. Most Republicans will vote for the defense agreement with Saudi Arabia if Israel feels like it's a good deal for them. I would do it because I would like to have a better partnership with the Saudis. There are a lot of Democrats, particularly on the left, that would be pushing for a solution to the Palestinian problem that nobody in Israel could agree to. So I think President Biden could get enough of his Democratic senators to join with the Republicans to get 67 votes. I told the Crown Prince a year ago, the best way to get 67 votes, and this was before October the 7th, is on the watch of a Democratic president. And I believe that.
I was actually going to ask you that, how can you deliver the Democratic senators who have been opposing even to a deal with Saudi Arabia, let alone a deal with Israel?
I trust that the President Biden can do that. That's his job.
Well,
my job is...
Let's hope it's going to work out.
Yeah.
What you just detailed now, it sounds like more easier said than done.
Oh, it's all easier said than done.
Absolutely.
Everything
so we're talking about allowing humanitarian aid, etc. Israel just closed Rafah.
Okay,
It is not enough aid getting to people who are on the verge of starvation.
So I was on the phone with the Egyptians yesterday. They need to let the trucks in, and we need to have more crossings. Nobody's benefiting, you know, from unnecessary suffering. But I keep thinking about this, and I can't come up with a better idea than what the Crown Prince has put on the table. Pause the fighting, do the normalization, come up with a plan over time to give Palestinians hope, let Israel finish off Hamas. Security for Israel, hope for the Palestinians. And I say this openly in Israel, there's no security for Israel without hope for the Palestinians. It's just not going to happen. And there's really no hope for the Palestinians unless somebody new comes along, because their leaders are old and corrupt. And so the bottom line is, the sooner we can do this, the better. We are running out of time because our American elections are getting so, and I think Iran knows that. And I may be wrong, but I'm convinced that one of the main driving forces of the October 7th attack was to stop this effort by the Crown Prince and the United States to build on the Abraham Accords with Israel. That's a nightmare for the Iranians. And why did they film it? Just to inflame passions.
Just before we end this, I want to ask you about Iran as well. Do you believe that Iran on its way to acquire nuclear weapons?
I think that's their goal, and I think they would use them. So it's widely believed Israel has nuclear weapons. They won't tell you, but I wouldn't bet against it. I don't worry about Israel waking up one day and irresponsibly using a nuclear weapon. The Crown Prince doesn't want a nuclear weapon. He wants to have a relationship with the United States. The first thing you got to understand is, what does the other person want? I believe the Iranian people are suffering under a very tough regime. I believe that young women are being beaten to death for no good reason. I see change in Saudi Arabia that's taking the faith in a new direction. I see the Crown Prince empowering women consistent with religious doctrine, that 38% of the Saudi workforce are now women. Women can drive, they can go out without a male escort. Opportunity for women is growing in Saudi Arabia. The Iranian people are not my enemy. The Ayatollah is my enemy, and here's what I think about him. I think he's a religious zealot. I think he believes it's his job to purify Islam, that he would impose his view of Islam on Saudi Arabia, that he believes the flame of the Islamic movement should be in Tehran, not in Medina and Mecca.
Right.
And he's a dangerous man. When he says death to America, I believe him. When he says he wants to kill all the Jews, I believe him. And I think he has a plan for your faith that would submit Saudi Arabia to his rule.
One of the Iran proxies is Hezbollah. And we have seen this war, this fear that it might escalate to the northern front.
And the Houthis.
The Houthis, yeah, we're going to talk about them in a second. But with Hezbollah, do you really believe that this war is contained so far? You think that there is a possibility of being expanded?
I don't know who's going to watch this show, but I hope you do watch it.
120 million people.
Good. Okay, so here's what I want to tell you about. Hezbollah has over 100,000 rockets pointed at Israel. Missiles. They could overwhelm Iron Dome. If Israel had a massive attack from Hamas and Hezbollah at the same time, it could really do a lot of damage to the state of Israel. It would overwhelm Iron Dome. Here's what I think the Israelis are telling Hezbollah. You do that to us,
you're done.
Beirut may not be around. We'll come back. We're going to hit you hard. And here's what I want Iran to know. If you unleash Hezbollah, then we're coming for you. I want the evil to know we're coming for you. So the only reason Hezbollah, I think, has not done this is that they're afraid that Israel will hit back hard. And we got to let the Ayatollah know that if you want to destroy this region, you do so at your own peril. The Crown Prince is trying to take the region in a new and different way. The Ayatollah is trying to bring you back to the darkness. They're proxies. Hamas is a tool. They're Sunni, but they're being supplied by Shiites and Iran because they're doing the business of disruption. I don't think the Ayatollah cares at all about Hamas or Hezbollah. I think he just cares about power, and his religious agenda requires chaos. The Crown Prince's agenda requires stability. We have a fight here. For the Ayatollah to stay in business, he has to create chaos. And for the Crown Prince to move forward, he's got to bring stability.
Do you think the administration has an open line with the Iranians, have been exchanging messages?
I think the administration sent mixed signals. I think when Trump killed Soleimani, that was a good signal. The only way you're going to stop Iran from doing what they want to do is if the cost is too high to them. The day that Saudi Arabia and the United States sign a defense agreement where we will go to war for the kingdom, it changes everything about the equation of the Iranians trying to replace Saudi Arabia as the keeper of the faith. A direct attack on Saudi Arabia, or even use of their proxies against Saudi Arabia, would result in us getting involved. The defense agreement should not only just say an attack by Iran, but it should also say an attack by their proxies. Look what happened to Saudi Arabia with the Houthis, right? They send drones that hit your oil fields. What I'm trying to do is up the ante. I don't know how you say that in Arabic, but I want to make it harder for Iran to be disruptive. I want to form an alliance with Saudi Arabia and build on the Abraham Accords so that we engage Iran. If you want to be a peaceful part of the region, you're welcome to do so. But if you want to keep disrupting and you want to use proxies to kill people and destroy the economy, you're going to fight us all. So when Iran attacked Israel, one of the positive things was that you had everybody in the region working together. Here's what I believe. I believe the Crown Prince is trying to build up the region, and I believe the Ayatollah is trying to keep it in the darkness. So I'm with the Crown Prince.
Two visions completely contrast, contrast each other.
Here's one vision. Death to America, the Ayatollah. Saudi, I'm going to buy a bunch of Boeing jets. I like that guy.
Final question, because we're running out of time, on the Houthis. The US-UK-led military coalition have been trying to contain them. Yet, till recently, till 2 days ago, I think, they fired on American ships.
It's been a miserable failure.
So, where would you come if you were in power? What would you have done differently?
I would make the attack on shipping in the Red Sea a heavy price. I would destroy the ability of the Houthis to attack shipping and put the world economy at risk. If they attack Saudi Arabia, I'd make them pay a price. So Biden says don't, they do. We live in a tough world, right? And the one thing I've learned is that the Houthis clearly don't respect don't. If Trump wins, I guarantee you they'll respect him. The best thing that can happen is to get this deal between Saudi Arabia and the United States done right now and change our policies toward the thugs in the region. That if you're Houthis trying to disrupt the Saudi economy and strike Saudi Arabia, you're going to pay a price for it. If you fired international shipping, you won't have anything to fire with. That's the only thing they understand. These people are crazy. They're literally fanatical. They're nuts. In where we started. How do you deal with a kamikaze pilot? You hit him before he hits you.
Yes, Japan. If I asked you to read the tea leaf in the region and give me your reading, the best and the worst case scenarios in the next, say, 3 to 5 years.
Worst case scenario, the deal collapses. Israel is stuck in a quagmire. As they destroy one part of Hamas, it pops up in another part. The Iranians continue to flow weapons into Hezbollah and Hamas. The Houthis get reactivated. It looks like we failed and they failed. That there is no end to the Gaza struggle. There is no hope for the Palestinians. And Israel is caught in a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. Saudi Arabia cannot invest the way it would like. The region is in a constant state of discord. Radical Islamic groups get stronger and they even attack Saudi Arabia. That's the worst case scenario.
And the best?
Best case scenario is that we find a way to protect civilians in Gaza, destroy these battalions, find a way to close the deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia. The moment we do, turn our attention to the Palestinian file, work out a normalization plan between the Israelis and the Saudis that will lead irrevocable pathway to a better future, Palestinian emirate, whatever you want to call it, state, and done in a way that Israel can live with it and get it done, destroy Hamas and replace Hamas with something more tolerant and a better hopeful future. The two visions are stark. There is no middle ground. This is the time of choosing. I've been going there for a long time. I've had my problems with Saudi Arabia and I've had my disagreements with the Crown Prince. Now I went back. And the reason I went back is I saw change. I've been told by all my friends in the region, this guy's different. You know, we could show you horrible, terrible, but I see change. And what's going on in the ground in Saudi Arabia is real to me because the young people tell me. I met with so many younger Saudis. It's called FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. Everybody's wanting to come back to the kingdom. They have a hope. So what he's doing with his economy the Crown Prince. And his willingness to integrate militarily and economically with the United States is the single biggest change in my lifetime. So my hope is that he would not give up on his vision, that we will keep driving toward a better life for the Palestinian, security for Israel. But the key player here is MBS. He's what's new. Bibi's been around forever, but he's the new thing. And this new vision of the Crown Prince for Saudi and the region will provide stability and economic opportunity for everybody, including the Palestinians, and a level of security Israel has never known. The biggest loser in all this is the Ayatollah.
Well, let's hope, Senator, that the suffering of the Palestinians will end, that we'll have peace in the region.
Amen. Not only does the suffering end, the hope begins.
Inshallah, as we say in Arabic.